I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I have a real treat. I have a guy I've had on for years. I don't have on nearly enough. He's a big in-demand guy. He's a precious metals broker. He's a financial writer. He has more than 23 years of experience in brokerages in Wall Street. He's the partner of a business partner of Jim Sinclair at JS Mindset. You probably figured it out. It's Bill Holter. Bill Holter, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. I want to talk about the flooding situation in your neck of the woods. Now you're down in Texas. I know this isn't Texas is a big state; it's 1,000 miles across, but it's still close, relatively close by. And this is a unbelievable, unmitigated disaster that's going to have ripple effects throughout not just Texas but the entire country. Tell me about what your appraisal is of how this could really, put a drag on the U.S. economy.
Well, obviously, it's a human tragedy. If you can imagine going to bed one night and waking up the next day and basically all your belongings are gone, because that's what happens in fires. It's what happens in floods. Unfortunately, that's what's happened, is that you've got hundreds of thousands of people that have lost everything. From a financial standpoint, there is a debate as to whether a broken window is good for the economy or bad for the economy. I would say at this point, we do know that the financial system has been weakened. The financial system is tight as far as liquidity goes. So the insurance payments that come from the private insurers, even the flood insurance for the U.S. Via the government, they're actually I think it's $25 billion in the hole from previous floods. So it is going to be a stretch financially. It's also going to hurt, it's going to hurt the real estate market itself, because you are going to have a lot of foreclosures. I think the number I saw was that there's only like 15% of the homes are actually insured with flood insurance. So that leaves you 85%. And out of that 85%, I don't know what the number is. I mean, I can't imagine that it's going to be much more than 10 or 15% of that remaining 85% that will be able to afford to gut these houses, replenish furniture, et cetera, and continue making mortgage payments. So I think you will see in the next 3 months, 6 months, certainly within the next year, you will see a bunch of foreclosures and bankruptcies.
Won't this hurt the banks? I mean, everybody down there. I mean, Wells Fargo, which incidentally said they had more than 1 million more of little rip-offs of their own customers than they previously disclosed. I mean, no bank does that unless they're, in my opinion, unless they're capital impaired. But, all these banks have, do business there. J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citibank, all these banks do business there. They're going to take a hit, aren't they? I mean, this isn't just Harris County. This is Southeast Texas and parts of Louisiana. I mean, this is big.
Right. Well, it will certainly hurt some regional Texas banks. As far as the big banks are concerned, I think most of the loans that they underwrite, they actually package and either send them to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or they pool them. They're mortgage-backed securities, basically. So they're pooled, they're put into pools, and I don't think you're going to see capital impairments into any of the large money center banks, because they just don't hold the mortgages. And it's important to understand, Greg, this is a good example. Mortgages in pools are considered assets. So, and our world runs that way. Other people's liabilities are considered assets for the owners of those. What if they can't perform? And this is a prime example of they're going to go into non-performance. They're going to be forced into non-performance.
Now, when they stop making their payments to their mortgage
right,
company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what Jim has talked about all these years as far as derivatives are concerned. What good is a contract that can't perform? And I mean, the answer is they're worth zero. If a contract can't perform, it's a broken contract. And thus the asset side to the ledger also goes to zero.
You guys, where do you think we are right now? I've had Charles Nenner on this past, this past week. He says his war cycle is tripping, signaling going off. He says his economic, downturn cycle is turning down. Martin Armstrong is pretty much saying the same thing. These are two renowned guys. Both of them are very smart, very clever. I talked about it on my weekly news wrap up. How do you and Jim see it? I mean, you talk to him all the time. You guys have podcasting, you have subscriptions, and that's how people get to hear Jim Sinclair, which I think listening to you guys once a week would be worth it. But where do you guys see where we are in the economy? Are we worried about this fall? I know we've heard this in the past about, this is it. This is going to be the fall. But sure looks dicey this fall, and a lot of big names are saying it looks dicey this fall on a lot of fronts.
Right. From a war standpoint, you need to understand we're already in a war. We've been in a war, a financial war. It's very possible that we have World War III and no shots are fired. I mean, the purpose of war is to transfer power from one nation or one region or continent to another. And that's been taking place over the last, 5-10 years. You can see gold moving from the west. You can see power moving from the west and moving to the east. What's happened in the last, what's happened this year, and I wrote about this a couple times, we've had 4 naval mishaps, and so far this year. And if you go back to 1989, there's only been 5. 2 of them were refueling exercises. 2 of them were submarines that either caught a cable or came up out of the water and hit something on the way up. We've had 4 so far this year. We had and the 2 big ones, obviously, were the Fitzgerald and most recently the John McCain. They got T-boned by freighters, by cargo ships, which move very, very slowly. If you look at the holes in the sides of the ships, there's no horizontal scratches whatsoever, which shows neither of them were underway. They weren't going even 2, 3, 4 knots. They were dead in the water. With today's technology and the fact that the destroyers are actually pretty fast boats, I mean, they can do over 30 knots. With today's technology, that's an impossibility. And it's our theory that somehow, some way, U.S. technology has been trumped. And if you go back, I think it was 2 summers ago, where the USS Cole was.
In other words, somebody used some sort of a weapon that disabled the ships. In other words, whether it's an energy weapon or a hacking or
who knows?
Who knows?
But something's wrong. And if you go back 2 years, the USS Cole was buzzed like 8 or 9 times by a Russian MiG. Now, how's that possible?
Yeah.
So it raises all kinds of questions, and now we've had an overshoot of a missile over Japan, and basically no response other than bombing exercises.
And then they released video and pictures of them laughing about it.
Right.
I mean, it's like nana nana poo poo, stick your head in doo doo, we dare you, double dare you, double dog dare you. I mean, it's like they're inviting attack, which I don't know. I mean, it's just bizarre times.
Well, Greg, going one step further with that, we've had an unprecedented drop so far this year in the dollar. To see the dollar drop 1,000 or 10 points, 1,000 basis points in, call it 8 months' time, it used to take years for something like that to happen. And thinking about, just go back over the last 50 years, the dollar has been the world reserve currency, and anyone who tried to move away from the dollar, Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, uh, they got bombed. They got militarily beat up. Now the question is, if the U.S. military somehow technologically has been trumped, is that the reason that the dollar has finally, given up strength, turning down, and in fact not being used nearly as much for trade? Just look at China, look at Russia, look at countries all over the world that are doing trade cutting deals to the exclusion of the dollar. So from a financial standpoint, a weakened or impaired military is disastrous. It's dangerous. I mean, I hate to say this, but it is a possibility.
And you think this is a reflection of the dollar? You think the weakened military is a reflection of the dollar? The dollar going down is a reflection of the weakened military, I should say. I'm sorry. So that's what you think?
I think it's a real possibility, and that's I mean, you can't say for sure, but it definitely is a possibility. And if that's the fact, then you're just going to see the dollar. You'll see the dollar at 72 break through that, hit 56. It's 56 is the long term downtrend line. I mean, you could see the dollar. You could see a complete currency reset and no longer have a dollar, have a new currency.
Do you think they'll be able to? None of this is working. I mean, the shrillness of the of mainstream press. I mean, now he didn't give a good enough response to the hurricane. Well, he didn't give a good enough response to the Nazis in Charlottesville either. He didn't give a good. It said both sides, which is absolutely totally true. It's the truth. Now he's not giving good. There's no empathy with Donald. I mean, they're just absolutely destroy Trump media. That's what Sean Hannity says. I agree with him.
Right.
But none of it seems to be working. Is the next thing with the deep state, the DNC, the Rhino Republicans, the Luciferians, the New World Order, whatever, is the next thing just to crash the economy because nothing else is working?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Really, when we were just talking about the potential of war, I think there's as likely a chance or a higher probability of having civil war within the U.S. because that's what they're setting up. I mean, this left-right war, if you will, it's hot. I mean, it's people are to the boiling point.
And the problem with the hurricane is that, you have all these pictures of white people helping black people and black people helping white people. And, well, that kind of destroys that whole race war thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, that's their kryptonite, is that actually white people helping black. I mean, I see all kinds. I see white people helping black people. I see black people. I see all kinds of people helping each other, no matter what the color.
Right, but what's actually trying to be done is they're trying to wipe out American history. They're trying to wipe the slate clean and basically fool people into the way things were and the way things should be. I mean, this stuff
from the Democrats, the party of slavery. They own that baby. That's a historical fact. They are the party of slavery. They did not want to give up slaves. This is the Democrats. It was the party of Lincoln. The Republicans wanted to get rid of it, but it was already dying when that happened. It wasn't. The Civil War was not fought over that anyway. But I want to go ahead,
Greg. All year long I've talked about truth bombs coming out, and I still believe, and I still have high hopes that there will be the return of the rule of law. I mean, I read something yesterday where in emails that were, and I believe it was Wasserman Schultz's emails, I forget who it was, but in the emails, once they were dug into, it turns out that Tea Party groups that were applying for nonprofit status were in some and many cases completely denied, whereas actual satanic groups were approved within 10 days. So, I mean, there's all kinds of fraud, just dirty stuff that has gone on. And we just have to hope that the rule of law does come forth, that Jeff Sessions is real. We'll see.
Well, now the latest is Rohrbacher. He was on Hannity recently, and he's been over to see Julian Assange, and he's going to arrange a meeting with the president and Julian Assange. I'm sure Assange wants some sort of immunity or forgiveness or whatever. Rohrbacher basically said that he's 99% sure that what Assange has will completely disprove the Russian hacking of the DNC servers. Nobody has gotten a hold of those servers. I mean, Mueller is supposed to be this extraordinary FBI agent, and he's yet to get the servers. But Rohrbacher, congressman from California, says he's met with Assange. He says what Assange has will completely destroy the Russian hacking Trump collusion narrative, that the Russians hacked this terrible information, which is true, about Hillary Clinton, and then gave it to the Trump administration to destroy her and steal the election. He says that Assange, has the evidence that says that's totally false, that the whole Russian hacking thing is totally false, and that this is going to come out. One of your truth bombs. If that comes out, is it over for this Mueller investigation?
Well, yeah, it would be over for Mueller, but I would hope that Julian Assange would come out with more than just information regarding Russia, because the Russia meme is a complete joke for anybody with two eyes and a quarter of a brain to think with. I would hope that much more serious fraud, crime, etc., gets uncovered with irrefutable truth.
You think that's coming? More truth bombs to that effect are coming? You think that's coming? Or might they just turn the table over before any of those truth bombs come out? I mean, that's another reason why they would have a financial calamity or a war. I mean, don't have to have... Yeah. I mean, what do you think? This is very dicey, right?
Well, that's a very real possibility, is that they kick the table over, markets completely explode, actually close, and then what's the average person on the street going to be thinking about? He's going to be thinking about his next meal, not whether or not the Clinton Foundation actually was a foundation, or whatever type of illegal stuff that is uncovered.
I was listening to, it's just unbelievable, the people on the denial of the Hillary Clinton as a global charity fraud, and has a private server unprotected to cover the fact she was selling influence, committing treason, and with donations to her global charity fraud is just astounding to me. I mean, Geraldo Rivero's like, we really should just move on. Well, of course. I mean, I guess we really should. You talk about a deep state guy. Geraldo's supposed to be an investigative guy. You got to be kidding me, right? You can't see that?
Well, think about the Owan brothers that were the IT people for however many Democratic congressmen, that Deborah Wasserman Schultz. I mean, you got Pakistanis that had passwords, had free reign into their emails, and were able to pass all kinds of information around. I mean, that's espionage. That's sedition. And these people were paid right up until the day that he was arrested. Come on. And in one of his houses, there were all kinds of busted up computers and hard drives.
But you think that is as big of a problem as the Arwan brothers and Debbie Wasserman Schultz? I mean, there's all kinds of intelligence committees in the House of Representatives, and Democrats are on them, right? I mean, it sounds bizarre to me.
Well, the whole thing is bizarre. I mean, just go back throughout the entire Obama administration, go back even into the Bush administration. The whole thing is bizarre. I mean, today's news, John McCain wants to put a halt to Donald Trump putting a halt to transvestites serving in the army. And John McCain calls himself or portrays himself as a war hero. Yeah. I mean, come on, dude. We live in stupid world at this point. And people are getting more and more pissed, and the worse the economy becomes, people are going to get more pissed.
And we're arguing over transvestites in the military. Which,
Right.
listen, if you're too old, you don't get to go in. If you're blind in one eye, you don't get to go in. If you're too fat, you don't get to go in. I mean, there, there's all kinds of things that stop people from getting into the military. So
But
I
no,
mean, and you know how many days that a transvestite that gets an operation, they go in there and somebody who's wants a sex change, it's 238 days or something where they can't serve, they cannot deploy. I mean, we're
right.
talking 3/4 of a year and then expensive operations. Why would the military want to take that on? That's not a social program. That's supposed to protect our national vital interest and protect the country. But anyway, truth bomb. You think there's some more truth bombs coming out? What do you think? What do you think the truth bombs? If you were going to guess what truth bombs you'd like to come out, what would they be?
Well, the biggest truth bomb that I'd like to come out would be to get to the bottom of the human trafficking and the pedophilia, just to save the children that are being molested. I'm basically 100% convinced that this is one of the biggest problems. Other truth bombs, I mean, obviously, just the news services. You got CNN, MSNBC, outlet after outlet. One of them just throws crap against the wall, and they all start throwing crap against the wall and hope some of it stick. And none of it makes sense. It's they're the ones who came up with the term fake news when somebody tells the truth. And what they're doing is trying to brainwash the public.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I used to work at CNN, and as an investigative reporter, and I mean the hurdles that I had to go through to put
Right.
something on the air.
Yeah, that's
they're
not-
not doing that anymore. I got news for you. I mean, I had to have standards and legal and a journalism review by my boss's bosses. I mean,
Right.
it's unbelievable. They don't do that anymore. You just say whatever you want.
And from a financial standpoint, I mean, look at the numbers that we have. They say that we have no inflation. They say that unemployment's 4.5 or 4.6% or whatever. The financial numbers are a joke. Just look at John Williams. John Williams crunches the numbers the way they were calculated back in the 70s. And if you look at unemployment, the real rate is like 22% versus 4.6.
Yeah. He takes out all the gimmicks and all that stuff. And academia has added all these gimmicks. They added that gimmick in 1994. So he does that before 1994. Inflation he does before 1980, like in the 70s, like you said.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, the truth coming out will mean a crashed system. It will mean a non-functioning system. The truth coming out, when truth does finally come out, and it will one way or the other, credit will cease, because credit is based on trust. And when the truth comes out that trust was given forth with credit, credit will cease, and then you've got a system that is going to have to reboot.
What is your business partner, Jim Sinclair? I mean, you guys are on every week with podcasts and give out your thoughts, and we're lucky enough to have you on, which is great. Jim Sinclair is hard to get. What is his basic take on this? What you're talking about? He thinks we'll also have a credit seizure. We'll actually have, and what is that going to look like, and what does that mean to people?
Well, basically, with a credit seizure, that means distribution breaks down. And if you've seen any of the pictures of Walmarts or grocery stores in Houston, the shelves are empty. For example, we're west of where the flooding was. We still got 30 inches of rain, but we didn't get flooded. But none of the grocery stores here have any bread. And the reason why, bread was or is made in the Houston area, and then it's shipped out. Now forget about a flood. Imagine that there's no credit. Without credit, nothing gets done. Farmers can't plant. Farmers can't harvest. They can't ship it to the silo. The silo can't ship it. The grain can't be manufactured into bread, and then once it's bread, it can't get shipped to the final destination because every one of those operations involves credit. So when credit stops, you're going to see basically a seizure of all goods making it to markets. So there won't be goods available.
Boo, boy.
And that's not opinion. Uh, yes, it's my opinion that credit is going to cease. I think that's a pretty obvious. We're at the end of the biggest credit bubble in the history of history, and it's not a big leap to say that we're going to have a heart attack in credit. But saying that if credit ceases or is severely restricted, we're going to have distribution problems, that's no leap at all. That's a fact.
And if you could quote one thing that Jim Sinclair says, what would he say? What would be his quote on this? You are his business partner, and you talk to him all the time. What would be the words of wisdom from Jim Sinclair, if you have any there, that you could lay on us that he's recently said?
There are no markets. Everything's a hologram.
I know, yeah. Which is going to be another truth bomb. To your point,
Right, exactly.
You,
And Greg, one other point, and I've said this several times this year. It's a question: how is the U.S. going to perform trade if the dollar is shunned internationally and we don't have any gold to make trade settlement?
oh no, Steve Mnuchin said the gold is there. No. Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, went to Fort Knox and he says the gold is there.
Yeah, but you didn't see his clown shoes. They did a shot from here up.
What did Sinclair think about that? I mean, Mr. Gold, he must have been blood must have been coming out of his ears when he was like. I mean, what did he think about Mnuchin with that kind with that kind of a? I don't know. I don't know what you call that stunt. Where he go? I went to Fort Knox and the gold. I'm glad the gold is safe. What does Sinclair say?
Well, I mean, there was no anger or blood coming out of his ears. I mean, he just laughed. It's a joke.
And what do you say?
It's a joke. I mean, look at supply, global supply and demand for the last 20 years. If you look at global demand versus global mining supply and scrap, demand has outstripped supply by 1,500 to 2,000 tons per year. So that's 30 to 40,000 tons. The central banks supposedly had 32,000 tons. And the U.S. supposedly had, 133 tons or whatever. We know, I mean, just look at what China's been importing. The gold has to have come from somewhere. It can't be conjured up and printed like dollars. And the fact that the only place that gold could have come from is Western vaults. So the Western vaults have been emptied.
It just sounds to me if Mnuchin, I don't know who sat around in the room and said, "Hey Steve, I got an idea. Let's have you fly to Fort Knox, and then you'll tweet that you saw the gold. It's okay." I mean, why are they doing that? That sounds like a high school prank. Why are they doing that? What is your read on why they would do that?
Thou doth protest too much. That's what I got to say to that.
You think they're doing that because there is no gold?
Yes, exactly.
And they know there's a reset coming, and they're going to tell everybody, "Oh yeah, we have the gold. We have the gold. We can reset our currency against gold." That's what you're telling me. Is that right? Explain that.
Yes, I believe that, and I also believe that the Chinese, at some point, when this reset is in the works or done, the Chinese, they very well may bring armored cars into their national stadium, open the doors, put all the bricks on pallets, and say, "We've shown you ours. Now you show us yours."
Oh, man.
That would be a debacle, but I think that's the case.
So you're
And,
and that's why you say we can have a financial war and never fire a shot.
right, exactly. And they know it because they fully know what global supply, what global mining has been throughout history. And they know how much gold they've accumulated over the last 5 and 10 years, and even more. So they've got a big piece to the puzzle that gives them the final answer. We already have all the marbles.
Unless the United States has some secret hoard of gold, I don't know.
Stop. Stop. Don't, don't even go there. A secret hoard of gold
Well, I know. I'm just going to bring up every. I don't believe that. I believe the numbers, but some people say there's a secret hoard of gold, and you say,
Craig, if that was the case, gold wouldn't be $1,300 an ounce right now. It'd still be $35 an ounce.
ha 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 ha. Oh, good point. Good point. Well, I got to ask every question I can think of if I got a gold expert on. But that's what I'll hear. Oh, we have a secret hoard of gold. I'm like, poof. I mean, I hope we have a lot of gold in Alaska in the ground, or Nevada, or deep storage. I mean, I hope there's a lot of gold there, right?
That brings up a good point, and I've said over this last 4 years during the bear market, don't give up on mining shares. You've got financial and operating leverage in mining shares, and if there were any type of confiscation of gold, then the only way to own gold would be through mines.
Yeah, you own the production.
Right. And of course, people are going to say, well, they could be nationalized. Yes and no. I mean, governments have figured out that once they nationalize something, there's no more production.
Yeah.
So, don't totally give up on mining shares. I think those are going to make stock market history.
Ha, that's a good big call. Handicap this fall. I mean, what's going on in September here? Handicap it for us, if you will.
Who knows?
What do you think?
As far as timing, who knows? September, October, next year, I don't know. I know what the ending is. I don't know when it is. It could be the day after Labor Day. Who knows?
And the ending is?
The ending is literally a financial collapse where credit ceases up and people figure out that the asset they hold is someone else's liability and does not perform. And the advice is, rather than have someone else's liability, why not have an asset with no liability, which is gold and silver, and have that in your hand?
And one last thing, your clients. I know you have a lot of big clients. You have a lot of wealthy people. I asked this to Egon von Greyerz about his clients, and I always get some little nugget of information from fairly wealthy people. What are they telling you? What is a one or two things that your clients are calling you on the phone saying, Bill? What are they telling you?
Well, I think the most common theme is, how is nothing happened yet? How is everything held together? People just can't believe that the system is still up and running. And I do want to point out, we have had a pretty big change. If you go back 2 Fridays ago, there was a flash crash where 2 million ounces of gold were sold in 1 minute and 50 million ounces of silver were sold in 2 minutes. That pushed gold down $7, $8, $9, something like that, and pushed silver down only a dime. And if you look in the past with these big waterfall flash crashes, those amounts of metals sold would have knocked gold down at least $20 and would have knocked silver down 50 cents or more. And they would not have gotten up and off the mat by the end of the day. By the end of the day that Friday, I think gold was up $7, $8, and silver was up 10 or 15 cents. So they sloughed it off. And then last Thursday, or Wednesday night, there was a flash crash overnight when the Asian markets opened. They sold something like 780,000 ounces of gold and another big slug of silver. That had no traction. So something's definitely changing. And by the way, there's only 735,000 ounces of gold at COMEX in the deliverable category. So that 1 or 2 minute flash crash on Wednesday, Thursday night, that was more gold than than COMEX holds. Of course, the 2 million ounces was 3 times the amount of deliverable gold. The point here is this supply of paper is being bought, and it almost looks as if somebody's laying in the weeds waiting for these flash crashes, and they're buying everything that's being sold, and the market's turning and going higher. Something has definitely changed, and I can tell you something will definitely change if these buyers actually stand for delivery, because the gold and silver does not exist to deliver.
You think that the bottoms are definitely in and the trajectory is up, and somebody is intervening, saying, "Okay, all right, we're buying it," and you're saying
Right.
you think the day is going to come where they're going to clean out LBMA and COMEX. They're going to say, "We want to deliver it, give it to us, pallet it out here."
Well, not just LBMA and COMEX. I think the streets are going to be completely cleaned of gold and silver, and they're going to go no offer. There'll be bids, bid, higher, 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 and there won't be any for sale. It will go into hiding. Gold and silver will go into hiding until new currencies come out that can be trusted. I think that's where we're headed.
Very interesting. And then people who in the street market, the gold and silver coin market, they're saying, "Well, whoa, I can still buy all the gold and silver I want." You're talking about two different markets. You're talking about the people with billions of dollars on one side of the ledger, and you're talking about the street market where I'll have my 5 silver eagles, please. If you're saying, you're telling people that if you can still go buy those silver eagles or those gold eagles or whatever junk silver, you should go buy it now.
Yeah, do it now because it's available. My response to you, yeah, we're talking about two separate markets, the retail market, the institutional market, but the response is, for now, metal is still available. At some point in time, it's not going to be available, and you're either going to have it or you won't, and price won't matter. You'll count your wealth in ounces.
Bill Holter, the Holter Sinclair collaboration over JS Mindset, financial writer, precious metals broker. Thank you for coming on, USA Watchdog. Been too long, man. I love having you on. I was excited about. I was saying just I was doing the countdown. Yeah, I'm excited about having you on, man. Great. Anyway, hey, listen. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Again, Bill Holter at jsmindset.com. Thanks for coming on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.